There is a table in a farmhouse in Ohio that has not moved in 91 years. It has a burn mark near the left edge from 1962, when somebody set down a pie straight out of the oven because they were too excited to wait for a trivet. It has a water ring that 4 generations have been told, at least once, to use a coaster next time. It has initials carved into the underside, not the top, the underside, where a father wouldn't find them for years. Put there by a boy who is now buried 3 counties over. That table held Thanksgivings. It held 2 funerals worth of casseroles brought by neighbors who didn't know what else to say. It held a mother crying with the phone in her hand in 1968, and it held 4 kids doing homework by a single light bulb because that was the only light left on in the house after 9 o'clock. It held every argument this family ever had. And every Christmas. It held a wedding proposal in 1975, whispered so quietly across the corner of it that the bride-to-be had to ask the boy to say it again. It held a stack of unopened bills in the winter of 1983, when nobody wanted to sit down and open them, and eventually somebody did anyway. Because that's what the table was for. The things you didn't want to face, faced anyway, in the company of people who'd help you carry it. It held a hand-me-down Bible with a family tree penciled inside the cover, updated in a different hand every decade or so, right up until the ink ran out of room. Today, in most American homes, there is no table like that. There's a counter. There's a couch. There's a table, maybe. But it's used for mail and folding laundry, and it gets cleared off twice a year for something that looks a lot like a family dinner and isn't quite. This is the story of what that table used to do. Not just hold plates, but hold people together, and the forgotten discipline that made it work. Part 1. The table as the center of gravity. For most of American history, the kitchen table wasn't furniture. It was infrastructure. It's where bread was kneaded before sunrise, where bills were paid by lamplight, where a mother taught a daughter to sew a hem, and a father taught a son to fix a leather strap, both of them leaning over the same worn plank their own parents had leaned over. It's where letters from sons overseas were read out loud, more than once, because everyone wanted to hear it again. And it's where the family ate together, not sometimes, almost every night. This wasn't sentimentality, it was structure. In a household without television, without a phone in every pocket, without a bedroom for every child, the table was the one place everybody's day funneled toward. You worked, you came in, you washed up, and you sat down because there wasn't really anywhere else to be. The table didn't compete with anything for your attention. It was the evening. And something happens when a family sits down together at the same time every single day for years. You learn each other's patterns. You notice when someone's quiet, who's usually loud. You get asked, "How was school?" So many thousand times that eventually, on the one day it actually matters, you answer honestly, because the asking has already built the trust to receive the answer. Sociologists have circled this for decades without ever quite being able to name what was lost when it went away. But the people who lived it didn't need a study. They just called it supper. Consider what the table actually witnessed over the course of one ordinary week. Monday, a father coming in from the field too tired to talk, and everyone letting him have his quiet. Wednesday, a daughter announcing she'd made the honor roll, and the whole family stopping mid-meal to make a fuss over it. Friday, a fight between 2 brothers that started over nothing and ended with both of them sent to bed early, still glaring at each other across the same worn wood they'd eaten off an hour before. None of it was remarkable on its own. That was the point. The table wasn't built for the big occasions. It was built for the accumulation of small ones, night after night. until the small ones became the actual shape of a childhood. And the table didn't discriminate by mood. It held the family on its worst nights the same as its best. The night the crop failed, the night a job was lost, the night nobody had much appetite for talking at all. It simply stayed set, and everyone still came, because coming was the rule, whether or not there was anything good to say. Part 2. The discipline nobody wrote down. Here's what almost nobody says out loud about that old kitchen table. It wasn't natural. It was a discipline. And like every discipline, it had rules nobody wrote down, but everybody knew. You didn't start eating until everyone was seated. You didn't bring a book, and later, you didn't bring a radio, and later still, you didn't bring the television in from the other room. Whatever it was, it waited outside that room. You said what happened in your day, even the boring parts, because the boring parts were the ones that told your parents you were still safe, still you, still coming home the same person you left as. And you sat there after the food was gone. That's the part that's almost entirely disappeared. Nobody got up the second their plate was empty. You stayed because the table wasn't just for eating. It was for lingering, for the second cup of coffee, for the story that only comes out once everyone's relaxed and nobody's in a hurry to be somewhere else. That lingering is where the real family business got done. Not the announcements, the noticing. A father noticing his son had gone quiet 3 nights running. A grandmother noticing a granddaughter picking at her food. Small data, collected daily, by people who had nowhere else to be at 6 o'clock, but right there. It cost something, this discipline. It cost a full hour, sometimes more, out of a day that had plenty of other places to spend it. The barn, the mending, the paperwork that never really ended on a farm or in a shop. Families paid that hour anyway, every day, for generations, because on some level, everyone understood the exchange rate. An hour of sitting still bought you a family that actually knew each other. Nobody called it a ritual back then. It was just Tuesday. There was another rule, rarely spoken, but universally enforced. Whatever was said at that table, in that hour, mostly stayed at that table. A confession over supper, a bad grade, a bruised feeling, a fear nobody wanted to say out loud anywhere else, wasn't repeated to the neighbors, wasn't brought up again at breakfast as a punishment. The table had a kind of confidentiality built into it, earned over years of nobody breaking it. And that confidentiality is precisely what made people willing to say true things there in the first place. You can't get honesty out of a family by asking for it. You get it by proving, meal after meal, year after year, that honesty won't be used against them. It's worth saying plainly, this discipline wasn't always pleasant. Some nights, the table held real tension. A father and a teenage son who'd rather have been anywhere else, a silence that went on a beat too long. The table didn't fix every relationship it hosted, but it kept people in the room long enough to try, which is more than most modern arrangements even attempt. Part 3. What replaced it? So what happened to it? Not one thing. A slow accumulation of small, reasonable-sounding decisions, each one making perfect sense on its own. The television moved into the house, and then it moved into the kitchen, or the family moved to it. The TV dinner arrived, literally designed, its inventors were proud to say, so a family could eat while watching a screen instead of each other. Nobody sat down at that table and declared we are ending the family dinner. They just, one night, ate in the living room instead. And then again the next night. And within a generation, eating in front of the TV wasn't the exception. It was Tuesday's new name. Work schedules stretched, commutes lengthened. Kids' activities multiplied. Practice, then a second practice, then a tutor, then a job. Each one legitimate, each one reasonable, each one quietly claiming a slice of the hour that used to belong to the table. And then came the device that didn't even need you to leave the room to pull you away from the people in it. You could be sitting at the table, physically, fork in hand, and be entirely somewhere else. The table stayed. The gathering left. None of this happened because anyone decided family dinner wasn't worth it. It happened because 100 smaller, faster, more urgent things kept cutting in line ahead of it. And there was never a moment where anyone stood up and said, "Wait, that's the thing we can't lose." It just got quietly outbid, night after night, by things that felt more pressing and were not, in the end, more important. You can watch it happen in decades, almost like a time lapse. In the 1950s, surveys found the overwhelming majority of American families ate dinner together most nights of the week, and nobody thought to ask why. It wasn't a statistic yet, just a fact of life. By the 1980s, that number had started sliding, quietly, without headlines, as microwaves and two-income households and after-school schedules all made their own small, sensible claims on the evening. By the time smartphones arrived, the family dinner had already lost most of its ground. The phone didn't so much kill the ritual as arrive just in time to finish it off, and to make sure that even the dinners that did still happen were half attended by people only partly in the room. It's a strange kind of erosion, because at every single step, the individual choice made sense. Of course, you answer a work email that came in during dinner. Of course, you let a tired kid eat in front of a cartoon after a long day. It's only when you add up 30 years of individually reasonable choices that you see what they built, together. An empty table, most nights, in most houses. Part 4. What we actually lost. Here's the thing about losing a daily ritual. You don't feel the loss on the day it goes. You feel it years later, in a much stranger way, as a kind of low static that hangs over a family. A sense that everyone lives in the same house and knows surprisingly little about each other's actual, current lives. Parents today aren't less loving than the ones who sat at that Ohio farm table. They are, by almost every measure, more attentive, more informed, more intentional about parenting than any generation before them. But intention isn't the same as proximity. You can love someone completely and still not know that they've been quiet for 3 days because you were never in the room long enough, at the same time, without a screen, to notice. The old table didn't require anyone to be a better parent. It just required everyone to sit still in the same place for an hour. That was the whole mechanism. It didn't rely on anyone remembering to ask the right question. It relied on repetition, on the sheer accumulated weight of 1,000 ordinary evenings to eventually surface the thing that mattered. We've replaced that mechanism with almost nothing. A family meeting, maybe, penciled in like a dentist appointment. A group chat. "How was your day?" shouted up a staircase. These aren't nothing, but they aren't the table either. They don't have its patience, its lack of agenda, its willingness to just sit there, boringly, for years, until something true finally got said. What we lost wasn't the furniture. It was the unhurried, daily, low-stakes proximity that let people actually see each other. Not the big dramatic conversations, but the 1,000 small, unremarkable ones that, added together, are what it actually means to know your family. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from this. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being surrounded by people you love and still feeling like a stranger to their actual, current lives. Family members today can know each other's opinions on nearly everything. broadcast constantly online while knowing almost nothing about how the other person actually spent their Tuesday. We've traded depth for volume, more information about each other than any generation in history has ever had access to, and somehow less of the specific, patient, day-to-day knowing that the table used to provide for free. Part 5. What the table knew. The families who kept this alive, and some did, quietly, stubbornly, without ever making a philosophy out of it, never treated the table as sacred. They treated it as non-negotiable, not special, just fixed. The one appointment in the day that nothing else was allowed to move. That's really the whole secret, and it's almost disappointingly simple. Not more love, not more effort, not a better conversation starter jar bought off the internet. Just an hour, protected, every day, with nothing else allowed in the room. The table in that Ohio farmhouse is still there. The family that owns it now doesn't use it every night. Nobody's pretending otherwise. But they use it on Sundays, on purpose, and they've started teaching the kids to leave their phones in the other room before they sit down, the same way their own parents once told them to wash their hands. It's a small thing. It looks, from the outside, like almost nothing. 4 chairs, a wooden table, an hour with no television and no phones. But it was never the wood that mattered. It was what 4 generations agreed, without ever saying it out loud, to protect inside that hour. The plain, repeated, unglamorous act of showing up in the same room as the people you loved, with nowhere else to be. That's what the table knew, that we've mostly forgotten. This isn't only an Ohio story. Walk into farmhouses in Iowa, row houses in Pittsburgh, apartments in Queens, and you'll find versions of the same table. Different wood, different scars, the same quiet function. A family in Texas still says grace over a table built by a grandfather who's been gone 30 years. A family in Minnesota still keeps the leaf in, even with half the kids grown and gone, because taking it out felt like admitting something they weren't ready to admit. The table was never really about geography or wealth, or even how good the cooking was. It was about whether a family was willing to protect one unremarkable hour, night after night, from everything else trying to claim it. It's not too late to remember it. It just takes an hour. And the willingness, every single night, to choose it again. Part 6. How a family actually builds it back. Most people here protect 1 hour and picture a full production. Scratch-made dinner, everyone dressed, phones confiscated like it's a courtroom. That version is exhausting to imagine, so people quietly let the whole idea go. But that's not what the old table actually required. It required one small rule, repeated without exception. Not a perfect production repeated nightly. Start smaller than you think. Not every night. 1 meal a week. Same night. Same time. Table cleared of everything but food. Sunday works for most families now, the same way it slowly became the obvious night a century ago. Make the phone rule about the room, not willpower. A basket by the door. A drawer down the hall. Out of sight removes the temptation. In your pocket on silent still loses. Let fine count as an answer. The old table didn't get honesty on demand either. It got it eventually. After enough boring nights built enough trust. The first few weeks will feel quiet. That's not failure. That's how it always started. Stay 5 minutes after the plates are empty. Don't be the first to stand. That extra, slightly awkward pause is where the noticing used to happen. Decide it once, in advance. The old table survived because nothing was allowed to outrank it. The decision was made ahead of time, not renegotiated every evening when something more urgent showed up. Something urgent always shows up. It showed up for them too. It doesn't take a big family or a 91-year-old table. It takes 1 hour a week that nothing else is allowed to touch, held long enough to stop being an effort and start being just what your family does that night. It was never the wood. It was the repetition. It's not too late. It just takes an hour and the willingness to choose it again. If your family still has a table like this one, still uses it, tell us in the comments. And if this is the kind of history you don't want to lose, subscribe. We dig one of these up every week.